The trenches were well designed despite the fact they were so narrow. The trenches were the domain of the infantry, with the supporting arms of the mortars and the machine guns. The idea of the trenches was to give some protection from powerful enemy artillery and small arms fire, an idea that did not start in the Great War. Some wars in which trench warfare was widely used include the U.S. Civil War and the Russian-Japanese War. This form of warfare was already a developed art by the 17th century, and was created by French Marshal Vauban during the Crimean War. Trench warfare was increased in power by the Great War due to the improvement of weapons and technologies, thanks to the Industrial Revolution. Life in the trenches was far from luxurious. Much of the land where the trenches were dug was either clay or sand, which meant wet ground, no matter how many duck boards or wooden planks were used. Conditions were so terrible that many soldiers preferred to sleep outside their trenches. Diseases were also common, ranging from dysentery or inflammation of the large intestines to trench foot, as well as infections from wounds inflicted by flying shrapnel or bullets. A trench system normally constituted of 2 to 4 trenches, starting with the front-line trench and ending at the reserve trench. The front-line trench was the largest, usually 7 feet deep and 6 feet wide. The very front of this trench was called the parapet, which would be stacked with sandbags, along with the rear of the trench, or the parados. Due to the depth of the trench, fire steps were dug out for the snipers. Dugouts, or funk holes, were made to house at most 10 men, and protected them from weather and enemy gunfire as they slept. Past the sandbags on the parapet was the barbed wire and the machine guns. Short trenches were dug out from the front-line trench into no man's land, called sap heads, and were used as listening posts to eavesdrop on the enemy. The second trench was called the support trench, and the final trench was the reserve trench. These 2 trenches were connected to the front-line trench by communication trenches, which were used to transport food, supplies, and messages. Support soldiers were housed in these trenches, and the mortars, or heavy artillery weapons, were positioned either between the support and reserve trenches or behind the reserve trench. Although drastically improved from when it first began, trench warfare was still extremely dangerous, and both the Central Powers and Allies suffered heavy losses. Even though it was the main source of battle in World War I, the usage of this tactic declined at the end of the war due to unsanitary conditions.